When a franchise icon questions your future before your second season even begins, should we be worried? Or is this the wake-up call Atlanta desperately needs? Welcome back to the channel. There's a special kind of sting that comes when your own legends turn skeptic. Not the hot-take artists on social media, not the armchair quarterbacks screaming into the void, but a Hall of Famer who bled for your franchise, who knows what championship DNA looks like, who's seen greatness up close and personal, and now sees something troublingly different in the present. Todd McClure didn't mince words this week. The Falcons' legendary center, enshrined in the team's Ring of Honor in 2022, delivered a scathing assessment of Michael Penix Jr. that should send shockwaves through the organization's front office. And the timing? Absolutely devastating. Coming just days after Penix landed on injured reserve with a knee injury that threatens his availability for the start of the 2026 season. I'm not convinced he's the long-term answer. McClure told Broadway Sports Media, "Those 8 words carry the weight of someone who's seen this movie before and knows how it ends. This isn't some talking head generating clicks. This is a man who snapped the ball to Michael Vick, who protected Matt Ryan during his MVP season, who understands what elite quarterback play looks like at the professional level. When Todd McClure speaks, people listen. When Todd McClure expresses doubt, organizations should be concerned. Let's strip away the hope, the potential, the draft pedigree, and examine what Michael Penix Jr. has actually delivered as the 8th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The raw statistics paint a picture that should make general manager Terry Fontenot lose sleep. 60.1% completion percentage. That's not just mediocre, it's borderline alarming for a quarterback selected that high. Among qualified quarterbacks this season, Penix ranks among the absolute worst in accuracy. The only signal callers below him? J.J. McCarthy at 52.9%, Cam Ward at 58.4%, and Jalen Milroe at 59.2%. All rookies still finding their footing, or like Penix, first-year starters learning on the fly. But here's where it gets truly damning. 1,982 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions across 9 starts. On paper, that touchdown-to-interception ratio looks respectable. Dig deeper, though, and you find 4 fumbles and a 2-6 record as a starter. The Falcons aren't just losing with Penix under center, they're struggling to function as a coherent offensive unit. His QBR of 56.4 places him 17th among 33 qualified quarterbacks. Only Drake May 73.2 and Jackson Dart 64.8 post better numbers among rookies or second-year players. Translation: Penix is performing exactly like what he is, a developmental prospect who probably needed more time on the bench. Here's where McClure's criticism cuts deepest, striking at the very foundation of why Atlanta selected Penix in the first place. During the draft process, we heard about how athletic he was and his ability to move around, McClure explained, but that's not the quarterback we've seen so far. Remember the pre-draft hype? The comparisons to mobile quarterbacks who could extend plays, create outside the pocket, turn broken plays into explosive gains? The athletic profile that supposedly made Penix worth the 8th overall selection, despite being a 24-year-old prospect with an injury history longer than a CVS receipt? None of it has translated to the NFL level. I played with Michael Vick, and he was a quarterback who could really escape the pocket and move around. McClure said, invoking perhaps the most electrifying player in Falcons history. The comparison, or rather the stark contrast, is intentional and brutal. Penix rushed for 21 yards and a touchdown on 6 carries in Week 1, showing flashes of that promised mobility. Since then, radio silence. He hasn't attempted more than 4 rushes in any single game. The dynamic playmaker who supposedly justified that premium draft investment has been conspicuously absent. Penix Jr. hasn't been very accurate. McClure continued twisting the knife and has struggled to move around in the pocket. Before Falcons fans rush to defend their young quarterback by blaming the offensive line, let's pump the brakes and examine the actual data. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Penix has had plenty of protection. He's been sacked on just 4.5% of his dropbacks, the sixth best rate in the entire league. Among quarterbacks who've started at least 7 games, only Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold 10 sacks each, and Bo Nix 12 sacks have been brought down less frequently. Read that again. Michael Penix Jr. has enjoyed better pass protection than the vast majority of NFL quarterbacks, including established veterans and MVP candidates. The offensive line isn't the problem. The execution behind it is. It might be an unfair comparison, but when you watch great quarterbacks like Tom Brady, they weren't the fastest, but they could move a few inches, avoid defensive pressure, and make big plays, McClure observed. So far, Penix Jr. hasn't shown that enough. That's the difference between good and great, between potential and production. Brady didn't need blazing speed. He had pocket awareness, anticipation, and the ability to manipulate space with subtle movements. Those are quarterback fundamentals that transcend athleticism. And right now, Penix isn't demonstrating them consistently. And now, just when the Falcons needed answers about their quarterback situation, they're facing more questions. Penix is on injured reserve with a knee injury, his 5th season-ending injury before turning 26 years old. The uncertainty surrounding his recovery timeline casts a dark shadow over Atlanta's 2026 plans. Will he be ready for training camp? Will he be the same athlete post-surgery? Can a quarterback with this extensive injury history ever be relied upon as a franchise cornerstone? McClure's skepticism suddenly seems less like hot-take journalism and more like prescient analysis from someone who understands the physical toll this game exacts. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins, the 37-year-old veteran who is supposed to be mentoring his replacement from the sidelines, is preparing to start against the New Orleans Saints in Week 12. The Falcons are 1.5-point underdogs against a 4-7 Saints team, which tells you everything you need to know about how the betting markets view Atlanta's quarterback situation. Cousins' $100 million guaranteed money suddenly looks less like an overpay and more like the only thing preventing this franchise from complete quarterback chaos. The man who was supposed to be the bridge has become the foundation again, and nobody's quite sure if that foundation can hold. Terry Fontenot and head coach Raheem Morris face a reckoning. They spent the 8th overall pick on a quarterback who's shown minimal development, suffered another major injury, and now has a franchise legend publicly questioning his viability as a long-term solution. The questions are mounting. Was Penix a reach at 8th overall? Should they have addressed other roster needs and waited on a quarterback? Did they fall in love with the college tape and ignore the red flags, the age, the injury history, the mechanical inconsistencies? Most importantly, what happens if Penix returns in 2026 and still looks like the same limited quarterback we've seen in 2025? These aren't hypothetical concerns anymore. They're legitimate organizational questions that demand answers. McClure's parting shot carries both hope and doubt. I hope he proves me wrong. That's the sentiment of someone who wants to be wrong, who wants to see the franchise succeed, but who's seen enough football to recognize when the signs aren't pointing toward success. Michael Penix Jr. isn't a bust yet, but he's trending dangerously in that direction. And having a franchise icon publicly express skepticism accelerates that narrative. Fair or not, Penix now carries the burden of proving Todd McClure wrong, of justifying that 8th overall selection, of demonstrating that the athleticism and playmaking ability exist somewhere beneath the inconsistent performances. The clock is ticking, the patience is wearing thin, and the questions are getting louder. When legends start doubting, it's time to pay attention because they've seen the story before, and they know how it usually ends. Here's what makes this situation so precarious. Todd McClure isn't some disgruntled former player with an axe to grind. He's a beloved franchise icon who wants nothing more than to see the Falcons succeed. His criticism comes from a place of genuine concern, not malice, and that makes it so much more damaging. When your own legends lose faith, when the people who built the foundation of your franchise start questioning the direction, that's when organizational introspection becomes mandatory. The Falcons have invested significant draft capital, coaching resources, and organizational energy into Michael Penix Jr. The return on that investment has been minimal at best, catastrophic at worst. And now, with another injury threatening his availability and a franchise legend publicly questioning his future, the pressure has never been higher. Is Todd McClure right to question Penix's future, or is this premature judgment on a young quarterback dealing with injuries and a learning curve? Drop your honest takes in the comments. No sugarcoating allowed. This is a critical moment in Falcons history, and pretending otherwise does nobody any favors. And if this analysis opened your eyes to the reality of Atlanta's quarterback situation, hit that like button and subscribe. Sometimes the truth hurts, but ignoring it hurts even more. We're going to continue following this story as it develops, because the next few months will determine whether Michael Penix Jr. becomes the franchise quarterback Atlanta hoped for, or another cautionary tale about draft day optimism meeting NFL reality.